Christmas is coming up, and so I want to talk about the horror movie that feels the most like Christmas to me, The Lodge. Now, that is not me implying that my Christmases have been anything like The Lodge, but the cold and stranded atmosphere really reminds me of what being home during the holidays actually felt like, as I grew up in one of the snowiest inhabited places in the world. I remember distinctively being on Christmas break and not being able to do literally anything because the roads were near impossible to navigate, which plays a pretty important role in this movie. I know I say this in every video, but I genuinely do mean it this time. You have to watch the movie before this review. The entire atmosphere of the movie is built off the mystery of what's going on, and I'm going to tell you what that is. And sometimes I wish I could watch this movie again for the first time just to experience it without it being ruined for me. It's like an hour and 40 minutes, and you have to really suspend your belief at some points in the movie. But it's a fun watch. You just gotta believe me. But if you are still here, let's get into it. We start off the movie with Mia and Aiden's mom, Laura, trying to get ready to go. And we see Mia has a giant playhouse, which is a replica of the lodge that we see in the movie. And like, what kind of money do you have where you can have a replica of a lodge that you own? I want that kind of money. We cut away and see Laura getting herself all dolled up before breaking down and crying. This isn't related to the movie, by the way. The girls just do this. We get one more cut and see Mia, Aiden, and Laura in the car. The two siblings clearly have a good relationship with each other. But when their mom starts putting more makeup on, Mia asks, "Is she going to be there?" with a pretty nasty tone, implying their father has a new love interest. Mia, who is not woke, calls the mystery woman an ableist slur, and we arrive at Richard's house, the children's father. Here we see the mystery woman actually is there through a window. Their dad gives the children some money and tells them to run off to the store to get some candy so him and their mom can have a conversation. Richard, trying to be accommodating to Laura leading up to their conversation, lies about the mystery woman not being there while we see two used wine glasses on the counter. Laura also sees the woman sneaking out back. Tired of small talk, she asks what Richard wanted to talk about, where he says he thinks they should finalize a divorce, as him and the mystery woman, Grace, plan on getting married. Laura hits him with the IRL. We jump ahead to later in the day, with Laura drinking wine alone in her house before pulling out a gun and ending things. This is actually three movies in a row for me where this has happened, and I really didn't think about it until I was putting it into the notes. Maybe I never realized this happens in every movie ever, or it's just a coincidence. Only time will tell. After the funeral, Mia is very upset as she believes her mom can't go to heaven now because of how she died. This was also symbolized when she tried sending the doll, which symbolized her mom, with one of the balloons they were sending off at Laura's funeral. And it just plops down because Mia, being like 9, doesn't understand physics, but this does further exasperate how upset she is. We jump ahead 6 months, and David is setting up dinner between him and his children and Grace. Before Grace gets there, David suggests that they go to the lodge for Christmas, but Aiden is vehemently against it because Grace is going, as the kids are clearly blaming her for their mom's death. Aiden also drops this line.
You left mom for a psychopath.
And alludes to David being an author and writing about Grace in the past. This is also how we find out David is a better selling author than Alan Wake, the true travesty of this movie. Also, what are these decorations? Like, I have ascertained through my brilliance that it is Thanksgiving, but have you ever seen hanging turkeys as decorations? Maybe Grace is a psychopath. Richard has a conversation we can't hear with Grace off screen, where I'm assuming he's telling her to go home because the kids are upset. Kind of don't know how to feel about this. Like, yeah, the guy does deserve to move on with his life, but it seems like he was about to tell his kids that he's marrying a new woman at the Thanksgiving right after their mom ended things because of said woman. It seems timing may not be his specialty. Side note, I think this is a frame from Sleepaway Camp on the TV. Fire if so, embarrassing for me if not. The kids are Googling Grace, where we get our exposition dump that Grace actually is a survivor of a cult, where every other member ended themselves at the same time. Grace being the one who recorded the mass no longer being a live session, and in the kids' defense, this really paints Richard as a complete villain. Like, we haven't met Grace yet, but even assuming she changed, he wrote a book about this, and she's literally from a cult. And you're exposing your very vulnerable children to her. Richard comes into the room, and the kids lie about what they're doing on the computer. And he says he talked to Grace, and she really wants to go to the lodge with them, and how she has all these really fun things planned. The kids don't answer, clearly uncomfortable by this, but we get a cutaway, and everyone is packed and heading to pick up Grace, going to the lodge. This is the first time we get to see Grace and her dog Grady, where she meets the two children warmly. They are obviously not reciprocating this, but the drive to the lodge begins. Another side note, this dude clearly has some money, but it is driving a very long wintry journey in this Jeep from the 90s. This movie is from 2019. Why isn't he in like a Suburban or something? Like, I would rent a new four-wheel drive vehicle if this was my only option to drive a long distance in a snowstorm. They arrive at the lodge, and after 25 minutes of set dressing, we see Grace settling into her room with presents for everyone, including the kids for Christmas. It was hinted at earlier that at the very least Mia and previously Laura are very religious, and due to Grace's cult past, she is very much not religious, and the prayer Mia says before they eat, along with all of the religious stuff around the lodge, makes Grace very uncomfortable. The next day we see the family ice skating, and Grace decides she's going to join them. The movie does a good job showing how much of an effort Grace is making to just be on good terms with the kids, and they are just very cold to her at every chance they get, even when trying to protect Mia from falling into a fishing hole where Grace falls in herself, trying to get the doll Mia dropped. Mia is more concerned about the doll than Grace, as it represents her mom. Later in the day, David gets called into work, so he has to leave his family on the Christmas trip. This dude is an author and it's Christmas. What could he possibly need to go to work for? But he checks in with Grace to see if she's going to be okay with the evil kids who hate her for a couple of days, and she reassures him. He heads off, and Grace checks to see if the kids want to help decorate the house, to which they ignore her, and she does it herself. Later, we actually see Mia and Grace talking. Grace asks Mia what she wants for Christmas, and she responds with a dog. They talk about dogs for a little bit, and it's a nice moment. The scene ends with a not nice moment where Mia asks Grace if she would like to see what the present they made for their dad. And when she responds yes, we cut to a home video compilation of the family all together before Laura died. Later in the day, Grace tries to get Aiden to come out of his room by saying she's going to make something to eat. He continues to ignore her, which prompts Grace to be all alone and starts taking down religious things around the house as they start to bug her even more without anybody around. Next scene is a little weird as we see Aiden wrote mom on the mirror in the shower while Grace was showering, and even though she sees him sneaking away, he just goes to his room and pretends he was sleeping. After Grace goes to bed, she has a nightmare of the kids being dead that resembles a scene she recorded as a cult member, and also gives us a pretty unhinged jump scare. I haven't brought it up yet because it hasn't been crucial to the story, but Grace is taking some sort of medication that is alluding to keeping her sane. But when she wakes up, everything in her room is moved around, and Grace's doll is in the room. Grace knocks on the door and tells her she can't find her doll, which prompts Grace to start a faux hunt where she eventually finds the doll. Mia is unimpressed. She calls and leaves David a voicemail saying things are going great and about how her and the kids they watched a movie, they made pancakes, and they decorated. This is obviously not the case, as Aiden continues ignoring her, so she starts a confrontation with him about how tense things are, and how she just wants things to improve. Despite Grace being very vulnerable and earnest here, Aiden says he doesn't want to talk to her, to which she responds, "You don't want to talk, but you want to watch me in the shower," alluding to what he did earlier. He still doesn't respond, just raising the tension between them even more. We jump to later in the day with the three of them watching what I think is The Thing. I haven't seen it, and I'm not looking for feedback on that fact either. Before Aiden actually comes and gives Grace some hot chocolate, religious painting in another room falls on its own, causing Grace to get scared and asks if they want to watch something else. They're now watching the weird live-action Snowman movie, which I have seen by the way, before Grace passes out and she has a dream of falling through ice and being grabbed by the cult leader, showing how haunted she still is by her past. When she wakes up, it's revealed the house no longer has power and it is freezing inside. It also seems the house no longer has water pressure due to the pipes freezing from it freezing. She also discovers all the decorations, the gas heater, and the food is missing from the home. She accuses the two of this being a prank and goes upstairs to her room where all of her belongings are gone. It's especially bad because she needs her medication. After further pressing the children, Aiden says that she's the one who walks around all night, suggesting Mia has been sleepwalking, and he's suggesting that maybe she did it. Grace, still not convinced, goes looking for her medication in the children's room, where we are shown all of their stuff is also missing, including Mia's doll. But more importantly, Grady. The three venture out and begin looking for him, but have no luck. Aiden informs us that the generator won't work and doesn't know why. He says, "No power." And it's like, yeah, no shit, that's what a generator does. So it's not important, but this prompts Grace to ask how far the nearest town is, which is apparently miles away. But everything will be closed anyway because of the storm. When Mia isn't around, Aiden confides with Grace that he had a strange dream that the gas heater started smoking and everybody in the house suffocated. Later in the day, we hear Mia talking to someone alone in her room, and Grace barges in to confront her, finding her talking on the phone to someone, or so she thinks. But after snatching the phone away, we see that it's dead, and Mia says she was just pretending because she really misses her dad. The next scene, Grace boils some water to clean herself with, and the heat from the water fogs up the mirror, where it's revealed to say repent. That night, Mia barges into Grace's room as she claims to have heard a voice, and while exploring, a door slams open, which prompts Grace to investigate. She finds a window open, and when she goes to close it, she sees a symbol related to her cult carved into the snow. Mia grabs a gun that Richard had shown her earlier and starts walking around the house as she hears a religious chanting telling her to repent and confess. She then goes into the children's room and sees them resembling the same scene from earlier. It's revealed this is a dream, but the kids wake up and Mia had sleptwalked into the room and was standing over Aiden holding the gun. When Mia tries waking her up fully, Grace hits her in her fugue state. Grace then goes downstairs and sets herself up for a journey towards the nearest town as she realizes she desperately needs her pills. Aiden tries to convince her not to, and actually mutters, "Don't go," when she decides to take off. It's possibly showing that there's some character development and, maybe a bond being made here. Grace walks for miles before finding footprints. When she starts to follow the footprints, she finds that they are her own and winds right back up at the start. When walking up to the door, she finds what appears to be fresh flowers beneath the snow, and below that, a framed picture of Aiden and Mia, the frame saying, "In loving memory." Grace, who is probably experiencing mental anguish at this point without her medication and also walking hours through a snowstorm just to end up at the same place, just goes back up to her room. Aiden, however, finds this picture and asks Grace what it's supposed to mean. He again brings up the idea that he thinks they're dead and that they're stuck in the home, and that they would have no way of knowing if they actually died. Later in the day, we see Grace start putting the religious items back up around her house, probably in an attempt to repent, as the house seems to be telling her to do. In the morning, we see Aiden and Mia praying in the living room as they found an obituary of the three of them. It's important to note that Grace has never bought into the idea that they're dead, as she's hungry and cold, and she doesn't think that'd be the case if they were dead. But Aiden pushes with the idea that maybe that's what death is like, as it does seem like they're in some sort of purgatory. While the kids are praying, Grace doesn't believe this obituary is real, but Aiden insists that they must repent. This comes to a boiling point as Grace asks Aiden kindly to stop saying that before taking him out of the room. Grace then burns the obituary, and we hear Mia calling for Grace. Grace runs up the stairs and sees Aiden has hung himself, but he's still alive, proving that they are in some sort of purgatory. Grace has a full mental breakdown and runs out of the house, repenting by walking on her knees in a circle begging for forgiveness. However, we actually got a scene right before this that gives us some insight into what's going on, where we see a speaker playing the chanting Grace has been hearing up in the attic of the lodge. Grace then stumbles upon something devastating, which is Grady's frozen body. Mia runs outside and breaks down as it's revealed that Grady getting out is her fault, and she begins begging Grace for forgiveness and to please come inside because it's too cold to be outside. Earlier in the movie, Grace told Mia that she got Grady as a gift for herself, symbolizing the start of her new life, alluding to her previous involvement in the cult. And while I assume a lot of people's pets mean the world to them, Grady meant, everything to Grace. The day turns to night and Grace has still not come inside, and the kids don't know what to do. Finally, Aiden says, "We have to stop this," proving something way more sinister than a haunting or something is going on. We see the kids go into the basement of the house where everything that's gone missing has actually been stored this whole time. The kids go and get her medication and try to bring her inside, Aiden telling her that they were just pretending, explaining how he didn't actually hang himself, but Grace is proved to be completely mentally broken at this point. The kids, unable to communicate with her anymore, try to actually start the generator for real this time, with no luck. They need the generator to call their dad, as Grace will not come inside, still holding Grady's corpse. Eventually, while the kids are in their room, unsure what to do, they hear clattering downstairs. They go to investigate and see Grace kneeling on a burning log in hopes to repent for the pain she's brought to the family. A crushing line considering how much she's tried to be friends with the children, as we hear her wailing throughout the house while she continues to kneel. We see Richard is on his way back to the lodge at this time, and the kids are hiding in the attic of the home. Aiden insisting they can't leave, clearly recognizing Grace's mental state, but Mia really has to go to the bathroom, so she descends into the home. But she runs into Grace and gets scared and runs right back upstairs. Grace follows her and tells the children they have nothing to be afraid of, carrying the gun from earlier. Richard enters the home at this point and realizes something is wrong when he sees Grady's corpse in his dog bed. He sends the home where he runs into Grace. Final side note before we get to the climax. When I was taking notes for this, they literally don't tell you the dad's name until an hour and 34 minutes into this movie. There's a scene with the presents, and there's one for him, but they show you the tags for Mia and Aiden, but not the one for Richard. So this is the first time I learned his name for taking notes. I just put his name as Dave this entire time. Richard runs into Grace and she tells him they need to repent. She puts the gun to her head and he begs her to stop, but she says they're already dead. She pulls the trigger and there's not a bullet in the chamber, and her response to this is, "I told you." However, this gun is a revolver, and when Richard tries taking the gun from her, she tells him he doesn't get it and fires the gun at him, this time there being a bullet in the gun. The kids rush to him, but he's already dead. They try running away from Mia, but they don't know how to drive, so they get their vehicle stuck. Grace forces the kids back inside, where we see she has set up Richard's corpse at the table and she has set plates for everyone. After singing a hymn, we see her putting a piece of duct tape that says sin over everyone's mouth as we pan over to the gun on the table and the movie ends. First watch of this movie, I really did not expect this ending. But even after knowing it, this movie it's just sad, man. The kids go through a comical amount of effort to make this lady think that they died and that she needs to confess to her sins from being in a cult that she's trying to get over, by the way, just because her mom took her own life. This movie has a lot of plot holes. Like, how did the kids know their dad was going to leave? They didn't have a computer at the lodge, so the fake obituary was clearly premeditated, as well as the picture frame that says in loving memory. And also, how do you fake hang yourself? Aiden is like at 15 or something and apparently can already outdo Houdini. I can easily look past the flaws of the movie because the tragedy of Grace trying so hard to be involved with the children just for them to reject her because of their mom's tragic passing, something completely out of her control. And they force this woman who is trying to overcome her past to fall right back into it. It's so good to me. This movie is long, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't lose a lot of its magic after the first watch. But I still love revisiting it from time to time, and it also, feels a lot like Christmas, and it's Christmas time, so there's that added bonus as well. That's it for this one. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe. I've been Kali, and I'll see you in the next one.